All right, hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, March 16th. So, a couple themes of the day. Well, we talked about yesterday how it kind of felt like a gift at the end of the day, and today it kind of just felt like the gift was maybe returned a little bit today. But for now, I think the theme of the day that I have written down, I've got a couple things for the day, but until otherwise proven, it is sell the rip in growth names. Buy the dip, and the buy the dip seems to be working pretty well. However, that seems to be working more in the value type areas of the market for now, right? And we know that sometimes there's relationships that kind of are present for a while until they're not. But sell the rip is what I see right now in growth. It seems to be a little bit opposite of what traders are doing on Twitter. I pay attention obviously to what FinTwit is doing and so forth, but I think I think that the expectations are a little bit dislocated from what traders on Twitter, FinTwit is looking for. I think FinTwit thinks growth names are gonna go right back to the highs. I don't think that. I've said that for a while. I think it's going to be a process for them. We've seen a lot of names return to the highs, but they're few and far between in the growth areas. There are names that have done particularly well. CALX is one of those names, a software name. VIPS in the Chinese in the Chinese internet area, has done that. Right, we've seen very little dip in a couple of these names where there's relative strength. Here's VIPS, here's CALX, but that's not how a lot of stocks look like in that area. And the Qs paused today at the 50-day moving average. So they didn't give back all the gains for the day. And actually today, the Qs weren't really the issue. It was more the small caps, which finished down 1.7%. But yeah, I think that coming into today, we talked about this in yesterday's video that, and I actually used this word in Friday's video, being strategic, right? I think that if you get one of these gifts, like we kind of got today where the Qs started up pretty decently, you have to ring the cash register a little bit. I know that's easier said than done. Easier said, hindsight's 2020, but I think that's the situation. Is that right now, especially this week, right? It's Fed week, and besides that, we have quadruple witching, which the positioning happens way ahead of time, right? If you think that the volatility is just going to happen on Friday, that one of the witches or one of the things for quadruple witching is, and I think one of the biggest ones is index rebalancing, which happens on Friday, S&P and NASDAQ. So not just the names. I think that some people think it's just the individual names, right? You heard that NXPI and a couple other names. Penn is being added, and a couple names are being deleted. Those are just the adds and the deletes. Every other name in these indices gets reweighted, right? So, for example, I talked about GameStop the other day, right? If you notice what GameStop is doing, it's been falling the last couple days. Why is that? Well, one of the factors that's affecting it is, that it's a bigger weight than it should be in a lot of the indices. So, for example, if you look at the XRT ETF, and we went over this, I think, on Friday, but if you look at the weighting of GameStop and XRT, it is way much further than it should be, right? So it has to be brought down. Now, as long as there's more long assets following this XRT ETF, it's going to have to be sold. Right? And that's the same situation for every other index that GameStop is in. It's rallied way too much in terms of, the market cap. So all of these things, right? Remember, XRT is an equally weighted ETF. So every name should have about 1%. And some names have gone up a little bit more, an MGNI and a Signet Jewelers. You can see also have bigger weights. Why is that? Because the variable that's happened since the last quarterly rebalance back in December is price. So price goes up, it becomes a larger weight. Now, what happens is when you look at this on Monday, you'll see, hey, GameStop is back to 1%, in the ETF. So that's what's happening. So that shuffling happens. The brokers who are doing those trades for Friday, pre-position in those, right? All those announcements came out last Friday, right? Friday after the close, and of course you heard about the names that are being added or deleted. But every other name in the S&P gets reweighted back to its benchmark weight. So that causes a lot of volatility through the week. And then what will happen is by the time Friday comes, some of that pre-positioning will be unwound, right? So you may actually see GameStop go up on Friday at the close because of all the pre-positioning that is happening, knowing that it's probably going to be sold. So you've seen it go down this week. That's one of the factors, but that's just an easy one to go over. So we go back to our sheet here for a second. But yeah, I mean, we've talked. There shouldn't be. We talked about this earlier in the trading room too. But there should not be any surprise that it's a kind of a weak tape. You know, Powell speaks tomorrow, right? Gives the announcement and then does his speech, and it makes people a little bit tense, worried that he may change the status quo. So what do big institutions? You know, the big institutions are the ones who push around the market. What do they do ahead of the meeting? Well, they reposition a little bit. You know, maybe they go a little bit more into cash. Maybe they go into a little bit more conservative things. Maybe they take some things that they've had some profits in and they lock them up. Right? They don't wait to the very last minute. They don't wait till 159 on Wednesday to do that. They do it ahead of time. Just like with the S&P rebalance, it's pre-positioned. Right? You know something's going to happen. You prepare for it. All right. So that's why I think the other thing that we noticed today. As soon as the market opened was this thing in the bottom left of my screen, market breadth. It was weak all day long today. Even though when we started the day, most of the indices were up, I saw weak breadth. That's usually not a good sign. You want to see this, this changes color to green, minty green, and then it's kind of a nice confirming factor for the day. But what I don't like to see is what we saw in the open, which was the average is up and breadth was weak, right? That usually that tells me that there's an issue for the day, and that was basically how it looked all day long. So we could just bring up the S&P here for a second, right? And let's bring up a 5-minute chart, and you'll be able to kind of see the pattern right here, right? So even when we open, on the bottom, the pointers on the bottom of the screen. And I know, by the way, sometimes these videos are blurry. It's just because YouTube hasn't rendered them. They take their time rendering high definition. So if you're frustrated by that, just close the video and reopen it maybe a half hour later. It takes longer depending on the how long the video is. All right, so that's the price action basically for the day, is that sometimes we have these days, right? We go up a little bit up till 10 o'clock in the morning, and then sellers kind of come in and push the stock and push the overall market down a little bit. So it looks, just like a distribution day. And I think when you kind of put this in the overall context, this market has been super strong over the last week and a half. So, sometimes I see traders, in our trading room frustrated by the price action. I get it, to be a little bit frustrated, but you have to understand, the market has been on a huge run. Maybe not all the stocks, right? And we can look at the Qs again, because the Qs are at the 50-day moving average, and they closed right there. But still, this is a nice move off the lows. So, make sure that you kind of put things in perspective. And and then just kind of go from there. And also I make mistakes too. I always show my trade, the trading blotter for the day. I bought some things where I probably shouldn't have, in the first 20 minutes of the day. I did like the semi strength today, right? So if we go back to this, and again, you could see, by the way, speaking of market breadth, right? You could see that a lot of areas were down for the day. Only a few areas were up. Right, that's what we call strong or weak market breadth. It was weak today. So the semis, I think, was pretty good, although they gave back a lot of their gains, and it's tough. I did take the opportunity. I chased a couple things because I thought that, hey, the semiconductors really haven't moved too much since the lows. Maybe they can really get going and establish themselves. That didn't really come true to form. I did take, as always, I try to be a net seller into strength. So I got out of my Yum trade from yesterday. I got out of Starbucks. I hit one quick target. I put on an SE. It's still one of my favorite trades names to buy on the dip. And I said that would be a day trade, and I took one target in it, and then once it went back to the cost basis, I got out. Right, I don't want to see a winner turn into a loser. That's a big thing in trading. And then I even put a trade idea in here. I did not take this trade because I didn't want to go nuts with chasing a green tape. Trade management, this call spread is not going to work, even the outright calls. I got out of Yum, got out of the SE. I added a little bit to JP Morgan. So again, I'm trying to practice what I preach here, right? And sell the rip and buy the dip in a little bit of value. So I thought JP Morgan being down like about 1.5% today was a good opportunity. I added to that trade. I did try, West. I got, sometimes I get nudged into a trade a little bit. We saw some Western Digital calls, but that went below my stop intraday, and I just decided to dump it and to stay a little bit leaner into that Fed meeting tomorrow. ON worked. Why don't I have the original trade in here? Yeah, I must have made him. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Sorry, I'm missing it. Yeah, I saw these go up earlier. I dumped them. I think they were mentioned on CNBC, and you know how that goes. When they mention something on TV and it pops, it's a great opportunity to get out. I did convert that over to short-term options, so I paid 157, sold them for 195, and then I converted it into stock. All right. So again, I do that quite a bit. Sometimes if I'm playing, a trade in short-term options, and I still like the name, right? I don't want to hold short-term options because of the theta decay, because of the implied volatility. Obviously, they get a jump in implied volatility when they're mentioned on TV when everybody's watching. So I get out of that trade on that bump, and I go into stock, which I don't have to worry about the theta decay. I don't have to worry about the implied volatility, and then I can kind of use a nice, stop price for that. All right, and that's Square. I got into yesterday. I decided to take that off. Again, didn't want to see that turn into a bet, to a negative trade. The Western Digital, I took a loss on that one. Disney is a name I've been watching, and was happy to take a first target there. I like this chart. I again, buying the dip a little bit, even though this hasn't dipped that much, but it's been consolidating. I was looking at this name last week too, and I tried trading it a little bit. And so I'm looking for this consolidation to resolve higher, as names do in uptrends. So that's what I'm looking for. We're just into the to the 20-day moving average, but you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're still holding this gap, and we're holding the top of value. So that was the name that I went after. I thought also Visa. I was watching this name. I know one of the traders in the room took this too, but Visa and MasterCard have been nicely consolidating their gains. And when I saw the market get hit a little bit midday, I was watching. This was around. So again, we can look at what the Qs did. All right, so the Qs, well, they really started to slide at 11 o'clock. They bounced a little bit, and then they really started going lower at around 1 o'clock. But look at the chart of Visa, right? Look at how that looked different, right? That actually started a rebound and held its own, and then once the pressure was off the tape, this name moved higher there. So. Sorry, I'm just watching the TV. Lennar Executive Chairman, Open Door IPO helped boost results. So there's some comments on the tape. Some names that reported earnings. It'll be interesting to see where these names end up going. Coupa Software had good results, but these names have been in the doghouse. Right, Coupa Software, which has been one of the better software names, fell below the 200-day moving average, and you just don't know, even with good results, if these names are going to rally. Just because, and this should tell you something, right? A name has a good quarter, right? But again, that happened in the past. People are looking in the future, right? That's what a lot of these people get confused a lot by earnings announcements, right? They're talking about two things: how they performed in the past quarter, which is over with, and what their future business is going to look like. So we look at guidance, and you try to get a pulse of that in the earnings call. But again, so many people I think are confused. They think, oh, because they had a good quarter last quarter, the stock's going to react and go up. That's not how it works. It has to be. It's really on the prospects of what you think is going to happen in the future. Now, there is some consistency, between a name that continues to execute and execute well, that may carry over. But the business has to be strong. It's not just their business, right? It's the industry too, right? So we've talked a lot about that with, say, Zoom, right? People just are not going to be on as many. People are still going to be using Zoom, and it's a great company, but they're not going to be on as many Zoom calls, right? Kids go back to school. Maybe some kids will be at home using Zoom, but for the most part, come September, kids are not going to be on Zoom. They're going to be in classrooms, hopefully, right? So things like that. So same thing with the software space, right? So if these names can rally here, and that's what I would be looking for Coupa to do, is to basically stay above that 289 level and maybe get up to this VPOC to take it out. Same thing with CrowdStrike, right? They are starting to react here, so a move above 206 would be constructive too, in my opinion, to kind of get CrowdStrike out of its funk too. CrowdStrike did take out this downside VPOC, and 204 is the level to watch really on the daily chart to see if this thing, and notice it's gotten rejected once it fell out of value. So nice bounce on the VPOC, but if you're trading this, if you're an active trader, 204 is where you wanted to take your profits if you were playing for a bounce trade. The next thing that you want to do, if you're an active trader, is to see if this name can get back inside value, and that's above 294. Where is this thing now? Yeah, it's up at 207. So that could be pretty good. Another name that reported too in the software space, which is not one of my, I don't really track this name so well, but similar concept, 71. This is Smartsheet, but I'm paying most attention to both, more attention to CrowdStrike and to Coupa Software. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. And again, these weeks, just keep in mind, right? I know that there's always events, every week, but there's a Fed meeting tomorrow. So overall, Powell has been wonderful for this, for this market. But everybody is a little bit apprehensive. When I say everybody, institutions are apprehensive going into Fed meetings because everybody's afraid that he's going to change the tone. He's going to take the punch ball away. Do I think that's going to happen in tomorrow's meeting? No, but I don't know if he starts to set that up for when they start tapering. And I think that's what people are wondering. When people are really wondering like that and a little bit apprehensive, what do? They act a little bit more conservative going into a meeting that could potentially change the tone. All right. Hope that makes sense, guys. Have a great night, everybody, and see you tomorrow.